Hello, this is Harbor Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. So feedback is greatly important. Feel free to reach out to me either through email and all of those audio platforms. Getting ahead of myself here. All those sources will be provided. All right, so some of the audio platforms that I'm on Speaker, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, just to name a few. All right, so it's Friday. So I'm focusing my attention on all of your wonderful listeners here. And so the country that I'm going to focus on in the aspects of fashion is the Philippines. Here we go. All right, so my thoughts about the Philippines. I think it's really interesting when these concepts aren't anything new in the aspects of countries getting cultural influences from other countries, and whether it's through admiration, whether it's through other war or what have you. When you get, or in the case of America, in the aspects of different hopes and aspirations and promises and dreams, immigrating to come to America, and when that's done the legal way, it's a beautiful thing to happen. But the Philippines is quite interesting because, from what I understand, there's a lot of Spanish influence in the Philippines, and especially and that goes across the board. And this is the next talking subjects and concepts that I'm going to talk about after I finish, covering. But it's just I'm just so thankful for all of y'all. Every day it grows new and new listeners, from new cities, countries, so forth, and it's just wonderful. And so when I get through what I can get through with the aspects of everyone who's listening and the fashion aspects, I'm going to start on the subject of language. Now, I already started that on Substack, and I'm going to relay that and specifically talk about the aspects of the cultural influences of language on my main channel here. And so, Philippines here, when we get the aspects of the Spanish influences, where it be language, where it be the influence in food, and then specifically, now that I'm talking about fashion, all of these things are showcased and linked in the culture. So again, as I said, that when I started this talking about fashion and everything and starting this series on Fridays, fashion in itself is another aspect of getting a glimpse and getting much more of a different view, what I mean by much more of a different viewpoint. So before, getting off subject. So the familiar aspects of, getting the concept of what people think, you get that primarily from politics, religion, culture within that is pop culture, and then so forth. And there's a lot of aspects that fall into politics, religion, and everything else. But most of the time, people don't think about, people do, but they don't think about it in a mainstream sense sometimes, that how influential fashion and clothing is, because it really speaks a lot about the aspects of what people think and feel about themselves, and then what that culture does as well. And so it's even more interesting, when we get countries that are influenced by other cultures too, and then also establish their own within other cultures. Well, okay, with all this said, I'm going to get into talking about facts about fashion of the Philippines. Here we go. Okay, and of course, sources will be provided. All right, so the fashion history of the Philippines is a rich tapestry influenced by various civilizations that have settled in the country. Traditional Filipino clothing was characterized by bright colors and the intricate embroidery with garments made of native materials such as, forgive me for the pronunciation of this, acabaca, piña, and su. During the Spanish colonial period, European influences started to shape the fashion landscape. The Filipino dress, a traditional formal dress with butterfly sleeves, became popular among upper class, while the barong taglog, a formal skirt made of piña or just fabric, became a staple for men. So, the traditional aspects. So, blouses and skirts was worn by lowland people in the Philippines. This attire represents the rural life in the Philippines and evolved throughout the colonial era. Today it is known as the Maria Clara gown, which represents the Spanish colonial history of the country and the aristocrat aspects of the Filipino people. So in the 1930s, the Philippines was famous for its beauty pageants and carnivals, which influenced the fashion and beauty standards of Filipino women. So, traditional dresses was popular through the 1930s. However, during World War II, it gradually disappeared and stopped being manufactured as the country faced shortages, and from the shortages you got hardships. So the history of the Philippine dress reflects the country's cultural identity and the infusion of indigenous and colonial influences. It evolved from several iterations of Spanish missionaries, thinking that indigenous Filipino women were aspects of immodest, so leading to the modification and renaming of traditional clothing. So the sleeves of Filipino garments grew in size, but they did not become tall and pleated until the United States took control during the first half of the 20th century. Modern Filipino dress fashion, that is, continued to re-image the tradition by incorporating contemporary elements such as bold prints and asymmetrical cuts. So the innovative fabrics preserving its heritage while infusing it with a modern aesthetic. So notable Filipino fashion included Pitoy Monroe, Ito Kurata, Ino Soto, and Christian Espetu, Isra Santos, Mitch Dulce, Francis Liberin, Olivia Torrento, and Michael, Cinco, just to name a few. Fashion in the Philippines is more than just clothing. It is a reflection of the country's cultural identity, showcasing the Filipino people's creativity, resilience, and adaptability. Alright, so I'm going to give my abridged thoughts here, and then I'm going to get into more facts and close everything out. So, again, I can't stress enough the aspects of the ability to be able to be, well, it said it so perfectly with resilient and to have creativity in your resilience. And that's why the Philippine roots and culture were able to flourish, even though they were having all these different influences and different settling from different cultures and misinterpreting, misunderstanding the Philippine way of life, Philippine people, Philippine heritage and everything. They were still able to hold that intact because of being able to be adapting and being able to adapt, being rational and appreciative and understanding differences. And then also at the same time having the strength and the courage to hold on to what you see best about your own heritage. And so that's why, Philippine culture has left is still leaving a very unique mark in culture on a global scene here. Because, typically when you think about Philippine heritage, even from a mainstream point of view, you have different imageries that pop up, but for the most part, it's very prevalent that people are familiar with it, and that can be a hard obstacle to accomplish when you have so many different, as I was just stating to you, factors that might be against you when it comes to stuff like that. When you're trying to assert your own identity that you know is true in the midst of everything, muddying it up with their way and their visions on how they see everything in the sense of your own way, native land here. And that's quite interesting when we think about the concepts of relaying this back to when we get into the landscape of which the culture in which we're living today. So, I don't mean to get on the soapbox here, but it's just one of those things. Why not talk about it? Because I don't. It's just why overlook the elephant in the room. Now things are, getting to a better point in the aspects of trying to bridge the gap of things not being so as much as polarizing as it is when we come to culture and we come to merging ideas and thinking about the aspects of modern society in which we live in today in the landscape of American culture. But, it still some time to get there because, again, that is what is very prevalent and why people still look to the American dream or come to America and the aspects of the freedoms that are granted to American citizens and to the aspects of the way of life of being an American. And then with that, it takes a lot of civil responsibilities and duties in the aspects of preserving everything. And I think that taking a lesson from being able to be adaptive and resilient at the same time, and not just with all this said, not just having those qualities, but being rational with those qualities is really what helps to preserve traditions. All right, so I'm going to get into the last section of the show and wrap up with some additional facts about Philippine fashion. Here we go. Okay, and this is the last part, and of course, sources will be provided for you. All right, so this is from Lola app, and it's entitled "A Journey Through Time: Unraveling the History of Philippine Fashion." So I'm just going to touch on the brief aspects of the time periods and wrap it up. All right, so inception of Filipino fashion. The history of Philippine fashion dates back to pre-colonial times when indigenous tribes crafted clothing and accessories from indigenous materials. These early garments were designed to provide comfort and protection from the tropical climate. Colonial influences. The arrival of the colonization in the Philippines brought new influences. So, of course, which was the prevalent influence in aspects of a lot of culture in the Philippine culture is Spanish. So, the Spanish introduced European styles, fabrics, and techniques, which were blended with indigenous traditions to create unique Filipino designs. So for instance, the talaga, the national costume for men, is a prime example of this. So post-colonial fashion. After the Philippines gained independence, local designers began to explore their own aesthetics. So they started to draw from inspirations from the country's rich culture and heritage, as well as from global fashion trends. Alright, so let's wrap up with modern fashion in the Philippines. So today, in the Philippines, fashion is a vibrant mix of traditional and contemporary elements. So Filipino designers are pushing boundaries and gaining international recognition for this. So the unique designs They fuse ethnic motifs, indigenous materials, and modern silhouettes. And I also think it's quite interesting with the aspects of embroidery, how, depending on your attitude about it, it also is a nice accent piece, and it also gets into intricate details about the aspects of symbolically what things mean to a culture. And that's a nice touch, I think, in the Filipino fashion and other cultures that embrace the impact of heavily using embroidery techniques and skills on their clothing. All right, so notable designers, for instance, Pito Moreno, known for his innovative use of indigenous textiles. Eno Soto, renowned for his avant-garde designs, and Rayo Laurel is known for his intricate gowns and intricate beadwork, often inspired by Philippine culture. So to wrap up, there are many wonderful reasons why you should learn about the history of this. So Philippine fashion is more than just clothing. For instance, it is a reflection of the country's cultural identity, and it showcases the Philippine people's creativity, the resilience with the creativity, and the adaptability in the creativity. So the history of Philippine fashion is a story of evolution, innovation, and enduring spirit of the Philippine people. So I'd like to know what you all think. Feel free to reach out. So this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. Tune in, turn up, and absolutely take care. Thank you, and bye-bye.